So your periods aren't quite right, but now what? In this video, I'm going to take you along 3 steps to figuring out your periods. We're going to talk in detail about tracking your periods. I'm going to give you all kinds of things that you can be paying attention to about your periods so that you have that as a tool to take to your doctor. The second thing that we're going to touch on is kind of the things that you already know to do. And then the third and final thing that you're going to want to stick around to watch is how to actually find a good OBGYN who listens to you and who really cares about figuring out the root of your cycle issues. I'm going to give you a lot of different resources here to help you find someone in your area or maybe a telehealth option. I'm going to give you some options that can be more affordable if you don't have insurance or just can't afford a massive, out-of-pocket expense. Definitely stick around to the end. This is going to be extremely helpful and important on your journey to figuring out your periods. So our very first step is track 2 to 3 periods. And I want you to be tracking these in depth. So let's talk about all the things for you to be tracking. You're going to want to write this down or take a screenshot. Let's start with kind of the basic part that you probably already track. You're going to track when your period starts and ends. That is all that the majority of women actually track when it comes to their periods, so we're not going to stop there. The next thing that we're going to be tracking is how heavy our periods are. So we want to be tracking how much blood we're losing each day on our periods. There's a couple different ways that you can be doing this. You can convert it to milliliters to know specifically if you are experiencing heavy periods, light periods, or normal periods, or you can just track how many period products you're going through each day. I have some resources for this, so I'm going to put on screen some things that I have made to help me track my periods so you can get an idea of what exactly you are looking to do here. I would recommend using your phone to be keeping track of these on a day-to-day basis, because if, like me, you have pretty heavy periods, you're going through a lot of period products and you can't keep track. If you're just trying to write them down, like at the end of the day, you lose track throughout the day of how many products you used. I definitely recommend you going into like your notes app or something and just writing down every time you change your pad or tampon so you don't lose track. The next thing that I want you to be tracking is your ovulation. And this might be new to you if you are not in the fertility world. If you've never tried to get pregnant, you probably aren't familiar with ovulation and tracking ovulation. It's really important for you to know that this is not just about getting pregnant. It's important to know if you're ovulating or not, if you're ovulating regularly or not, because if you are someone who experiences irregular periods, it's not necessarily your periods that are irregular, it's ovulation that is irregular. Ovulation is being suppressed, or it's taking too long to happen for some reason, or it's happening way sooner than it should. That is what is causing your periods to be irregular. It's not just your periods happening randomly. It's because ovulation happens first and then your period happens roughly 2 weeks after that. It does depend on each individual. We all have a different luteal phase length, which is that time from ovulation until your period starts. The other thing that could be happening for you if you have irregular periods is you could not be ovulating, which would mean you're not experiencing a true period. It would be a withdrawal bleed, similar to what women get when they are on birth control. Hormonal birth control is suppressing ovulation. That's how it works to prevent pregnancy. When you don't take that pill, your body is having a withdrawal bleed. That is what would be happening in these cases where ovulation is not happening. I'm not going to go into a ton of depth on these things because I talk about these specifically in different videos. You can find my FEMM education playlist. That stands for Fertility Awareness Method. I have a lot of videos that go into detail on different specific things there, so you can hop over there to find out more. Or if you have questions, please comment. And I'm always so happy to just answer a question for you. It doesn't matter how in-depth or long, just comment, just ask, and I will be happy to answer for you. So let's talk about how specifically you're going to be tracking ovulation. There's 2 main things that you can be looking at with tracking ovulation: LH testing, hormone testing in general, or tracking physical changes such as cervical fluid changes. So depending on the type of person you are and just how in-depth you want to get, That's going to help you decide kind of what route to take, or if you want to do all of it like me, because I'm very type A and I like to just have all the data possible. Just know if you do choose to go the cervical fluid route, there's just a little bit more education on the front end of that to understand what you're even keeping track of, what you're even looking for. So tracking cervical fluid, how that works is your hormones, which are fluctuating slightly each and every day, leading up to ovulation and after ovulation. Your hormones affect your entire body, okay? You probably know that because you've experienced symptoms in your entire body around your period or before your period or after. So your hormones also act on your cervix, and your cervix produces different types of cervical fluid. And you've probably noticed this. You've probably noticed sometimes in your cycle where you go to the bathroom and wipe and there is like egg white stuff coming out, or maybe you've been concerned that you had an infection because you just didn't know what was normal for women. This is completely normal. Obviously, there are things that are not normal that are signs of infections, especially if there is a strong smell. But just know that cervical fluid is very normal and actually good. It's a really good sign if you have really wet, watery cervical fluid. Is a sign that you are fertile. That's a sign that estrogen is high, ovulation is about to happen or happening. In this cervical fluid, its job is to help the sperm get to the egg. So it feeds the sperm and it gives them transportation to the egg. That's as in-depth as I'm gonna go with that. Point being, your cervical fluid changes throughout your cycle, which helps you identify when you are ovulating. So that's something that you can be tracking on paper or on an app. There's a lot of ways to do that. And just a note, I'm gonna link everything that I can in the description of this video. So I'm going to link ideas for ways that you can be tracking your cycle. I know a lot of people use the Flow app, but it's not my favorite because it doesn't give you as many great options. It really just focuses on the period. Choosing an app that gives you more options for tracking all kinds of different things and isn't just putting so much weight just towards when your period is happening would be my preference. But again, I'm gonna link my suggestions in the description of this video for you. So now let's talk about the simpler way to track ovulation, which would be using LH tests, also known as ovulation tests. I would recommend, if you choose to do this, just order them in bulk on Amazon, just the really tiny like strip test, rather than going to like CVS or something. If you have no idea when you ovulate, then I would recommend you start taking one of these a day on the 7th day of your cycle. So the first day of your period is day 1 of your cycle. So the 7th day of your cycle would be 7 days after the start of your period, if that makes sense. There is a bit of controversy between like what is the best time to take these tests. So it's just gonna be up to what's easiest for you. If first thing in the morning is easiest for you, go ahead and do that. Afternoon tends to be best if you're trying to get a good, strong, positive LH test when that day comes. But if you're working and you don't want to deal with like taking an LH test at work, then doing it first thing in the morning is fine. First thing in the morning can be good because your urine is stronger. It's not as diluted because you haven't been drinking throughout the night. So just one a day, starting at day 7 of your cycle. Once you get a positive, which these are really simple. A positive LH test is just when both of the lines are as dark as each other, or when the test line is darker than the control line. That's when you're experiencing an LH surge. LH is a hormone that surges right before ovulation, so we typically expect that to happen about a day before ovulation. So once you get that positive, you can mark that ovulation is happening the next day. And then once you've been doing this for a while, you can kind of figure out when you need to start taking them. Maybe you can start taking them later if you consistently ovulate a lot later in your cycle. For instance, I ovulate around day 18 of my cycle, so it would be really frustrating to be taking an LH test for 11 days out of every single month. So I know when to start taking them around cycle day 14 maybe. So those are the things that you're going to do if you want to be tracking ovulation. This is going to be really helpful for you to figure out if you have an ovulation problem. If ovulation is really fluctuating and not happening around the same time at all, you're going to want to look into that. And it's just going to be really helpful if you go to your doctor and you already know, like, hey, I've been tracking ovulation. I'm seeing that either it doesn't seem to be happening or like it's happening really randomly. Sometimes it's happening on cycle day 14. Sometimes it's happening on cycle day 50. There could be a chance you have PCOS or something like that. And that's just another quick note with LH testing. It does not work for all women. If you have PCOS, there's a higher chance that you have elevated LH levels just all the time. So if you are trying to do these tests and you are getting a positive LH test like every day, that could be what's going on. It can be about like 25% of women these might not work very well for. So know that it's a possibility. You know, it's a tool you can use. It's pretty inexpensive, but if it doesn't work for you, there's other things that you can look into. There are fertility monitors such as the Mira and the Anido that track multiple hormones, so it's not just testing LH, because the other thing that you can be tracking is progesterone, because progesterone only increases after ovulation has happened. So that's another tool that you can use to know when ovulation has happened, because if your LH is like constantly high or just, you know, constantly doing this, then using LH alone is really confusing. However, progesterone is going to be low until ovulation happens, and then it's going to go up. It will drop right before your period, which is what signals your period to start. That's another way that you can know ovulation has happened and roughly when it has happened. So that is all for tracking ovulation. The other thing that you're going to want to be tracking is going to be symptoms. So this really depends on what your struggles are. If your struggles are really massive mood changes, you know, before your period comes, then track that. Write that down. If your symptoms are really bad pain during your periods or even before your periods, track that. What I would recommend with whatever symptoms you're tracking is to use a 1 to 10 pain scale, because that's something doctors, you know, that's a term they use a lot, is that like 1 to 10 pain scale. So that's something that they're more than likely going to ask you about, and it's going to be really helpful for them, you know, seeing those numbers and knowing, okay, this is exactly like how much this is, you know, interfering with her day-to-day life. It doesn't matter how common some problem is. If it is causing you problems, if it is interfering with your life, something's not right. This can be a great way to help get your symptoms taken seriously. So what you're going to do is you're going to use that 1 to 10 pain scale for whatever symptoms you're tracking. Keep it consistent to you. If like a 5 and below is kind of moderate and manageable for you, maybe for you there's a specific number that means a specific thing. That's helpful for me. For instance, once I'm at like a 7, for me, that is where I am having to take ibuprofen or something to be able to like manage and go about my day. So that's just a tip for you, and to keep things concise when you're writing things down, either in your app or on paper, that you can just do like 6 out of 10 cramps, or 6 out of 10 mood swings, or, you know, whatever the symptom may be. Any kind of pain is going to be very important to track. Different, you know, like mood swing type things are also a common symptom of something cycle related. So that is kind of everything for what you want to be tracking with your cycle. And once again, you want to be tracking this for 2 to 3 cycles or 2 to 3 periods in order to get a nice picture of your cycle patterns, because you might have one cycle where ovulation happens like really early or really late, but the other 2 cycles, they happen like right when you would expect them to, right around like cycle day 14 or something like that. So that could have been just an anomaly, because it is possible for ovulation to move around. It does not have to happen the same day of your cycle every single month. Our reproductive system is very sensitive to stresses, outside influences. If you sleep really poorly for a couple days in a row right before ovulation would normally happen, that might be enough to suppress ovulation, because it's a very complex situation, everything that leads up to ovulation happening. So things like not getting enough sleep, or getting a lot of exercise, a lot more than you would normally. Maybe you go on vacation and you're a lot more active than you would normally be, or you're getting a lot less sleep than you normally would, or you get sick. Getting sick, for me, often causes ovulation to move around a little bit, or you have like a surgery. Anything, especially anything big like that, like a surgery or things like that, are probably going to suppress ovulation for a little bit and make it happen later. And it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your body. However, if that's happening regularly, you know, more than like once or twice a year, something might not be quite right here. On to kind of our second step. And this is kind of do what you know to do. When you go to the doctor, you're probably going to get some advice that you know, right? Just take care of yourself, eat good, whatever. So let's try to already have that done. If we're trying to get a diagnosis, we don't really want to waste time on getting advice that it's like, okay, well, I could have done that on my own. I didn't need you to tell me this. And there's tons of things that we know we should be doing anyways. That means sleeping, getting enough sleep for you. Different individuals might need a different amount of sleep. For me personally, I need 9 hours of sleep. 8 hours, I feel so unwell. I don't feel well rested just getting 8 hours of sleep. I need 9 hours, maybe even 10 hours. Now that I'm pregnant, even more than that. That's a whole different story. Get the amount of sleep that you need to be getting and do whatever you can to make that happen. That's going to be really important. Remember, like I said, your reproductive system is very sensitive to things like this. Any stressors, which a lack of sleep is a stress on the body, any stressors are going to affect our cycles. So let's do what we can to support our body and our cycles by getting enough sleep. Again, this is something we all know to do, so I'm not gonna spend tons of time on this. The other thing would be eating. The Mediterranean diet is kind of the main one that doctors are gonna recommend, and everyone agrees, that's kind of the gold standard. So trying to focus your diet on whole foods and a variety of whole foods is kind of the simplest way to do that. Really, really focusing on getting lots of fruits and veggies. The standard American diet, which is SAD for short, that speaks for itself, essentially. We do not get enough fiber. Most of us are not eating much, if any, fruits or vegetables, and we desperately need that. Your body needs that for so many different things. In your reproductive system, that functioning properly, that is a luxury. If all of our basic foundations are not being taken care of, then the luxury that sits on the top of all of that, it's not going to be functioning. So we've got to focus on these things that I know are really simple, but are really, really important. That's all for eating. Again, related to that, you've got to be drinking enough water. Just drinking iced coffee is not going to cut it. And that's another thing, trying to limit caffeine consumption. Caffeine does affect our cycles, and you may be more sensitive to caffeine than you think. Just because it's not affecting your sleep doesn't mean that it's not affecting your cycles. So if you drink more caffeine than you should, that could be something that you could look into, trying to start decreasing the caffeine and switching maybe to more of green tea based caffeine. I know for me, I feel my body responds very differently to a green tea based caffeine versus coffee. And for me, I couldn't handle more than 100 milligrams of caffeine a day. It would just mess with me physically, just didn't even make me feel good. So 50 milligrams would kind of be my sweet spot that I could feel it a little bit without feeling any negative side effects. So that's kind of another thing too. And then with that, the very last thing would be moving your body. And as you can tell, I am not into any of this diet culture stuff. What's important is fit as much good food, whole foods, into your diet as you can, and then move your body in whatever way works best for you. If running is not something that sparks joy in you, then you don't have to run. If, weightlifting is not joyful for you, you don't have to weightlift. You can go for walks, you can dance, you can roller skate, you can run if that's what you like to do. There are so many options. Just make sure you're moving your body every day. Just try to do all of these things that you already know to do, so that when you go to the doctor, this can be something that is ruled out and you can let them know, hey, I've really been working on my lifestyle. I've been doing all of these things for the past couple months, so I really would like to dig into this more. I don't think that this is a lifestyle issue. So that's enough of that. Let's move on to the third and probably most important step, which is finding a really good doctor. When it comes time to do this, you've tracked your cycles, you've done what you could do. You don't want to waste your time going to a doctor that's going to dismiss your symptoms. So that's basically the main thing that I am trying to help you avoid. Unfortunately, a lot of us have experienced that, and there's nothing more frustrating than getting your symptoms dismissed by a doctor. They're supposed to know everything, that's how we feel anyways. They know everything, and so if they say that this is normal and fine, then who am I to say, no, that's not true? They know more than me. First of all, I just want to instill some confidence in you. You know what is good and normal for your body and what is not. I give you these tools like tracking your cycle, so you have these really tangible things to hold on to and to show your doctor, to be no, this is happening. this is not right. You need to do your job and look into this and help me figure out what is wrong. You know your body better than anyone else. It doesn't matter if they went to school for years and years to study the human body. You've been living in your body for a lot longer than that. That's not to take anything away from doctors. I really, really respect everything that they do. There are a lot of really good doctors out there who truly care about their patients, and that's what I'm trying to help you find. Find those doctors, go to those doctors. I'm going to walk you through 4 different resources to help you find somebody. We're going to start off with looking for a in-person doctor, but I believe all of these have the option that you could find someone via telehealth, but I'm going to start with the more traditional ones and then end with ones that are more telehealth options, and that could be a little bit cheaper because I do have some prices for even if you don't have insurance and you're just paying out of pocket, because let's be real, all of this costs money. Not all of us have a lot of extra money for this. The first tool that I'm going to give you is simply Google NaPro OBGYN near me, or near, whatever city you were in. That should give you some options of doctors, specifically OBGYNs near you, who fall under this NaPro category. NaPro stands for Natural Procreative Technology, and it's just a really big fancy way of saying these are people who are really looking into what is causing, any reproductive problems, and they really understand, and they're really working with your body versus just telling you, to go on birth control. If that's what you want to do and that is, an option for managing what you have, I'm not demonizing that, but that should not be the only option given to you. It might not be helpful for you at all for your situation. These are typically people who are going to understand fertility awareness methods and be more open to it if you tell them you've been tracking your cycle for a couple months, you've been tracking, for example, cervical fluid observations or things like that. They're going to understand that and know what to do with that information. Whereas a more conventionally trained doctor might not have any experience with that, because that's not something you learn in medical school. The second resource I'm giving you is Natural Womenhood. So if you look up Natural Womenhood, they have a search engine to find a doctor. You're going to click on that and it's going to, lead you to a search where you can search your state, your area. You can choose, if you're looking for a specific type of doctor. If you're looking to see a midwife, for example, you could filter based off of that. If you're looking to see a doctor, you can filter based off of that. There are telehealth options through there as well. So this is another way to find a doctor who's going to align with what you're wanting, which is basically someone who's going to take you seriously. So this one is FEMM. FEMM, and this is actually where I did my training to become a certified fertility awareness educator. Searching through there, if you use the FEMM method of tracking, you're going to be able to find a doctor who's going to understand that. But once again, this is the same as the other search engines. You're just going to go to their website. FEMM, again, is what it's called, FEMM, and that stands for Fertility Education and Medical Management. Fertility education, that's what I do. The medical management, that's where you can find a doctor with them who is trained to understand your cycle. So again, this search is going to work similar. Find a doctor, search in your area, and they've got lots of telehealth options as well. And then the final option is actually through Mira. I was surprised to see this as an option. I have used the Mira fertility monitor, really liked it. And I really like that they have tons of resources through their website. So Mira, M-I-R-A, if you go to their website, you can actually do a consultation through them, which is, I believe it starts at $85. And then if you do kind of their package deal, which is a 3-month thing or a 3-session thing, that is $285. But for one consultation, it's around $85, $95. So this might be a more affordable option, especially if you don't have insurance or don't have good insurance. They're focusing a lot on hormone health and what can you be doing to improve your cycles. So that is an option as well. And they focus a lot too on helping you get pregnant. A lot of people use their fertility monitor to get pregnant and things like that. So if that is something that you're looking for, that might be what you want to try. That is all for this video. I hope this video was really helpful for you guys. I've been wanting to have a resource that I can direct you guys to that's okay, if you guys are having troubles with your periods, with your cycles,
Here's the video that will help you figure things out, giving you all the information that you need. So I hope that this video is that for you guys. I would love to hear from you if this was helpful, and if there's any questions that you had come up as you were watching this video, please comment or reach out to me, email me. I love to help you guys. Like, that's all I want to do. So I hope this was helpful. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It would help me out a lot. Like this video and comment if you have anything to say. Thanks for watching. Bye.